We're live again today. Welcome everyone to today's live. It's Natasha here from Nextwork, and I'm very excited to go through our latest project with you. And my heart is actually beating so fast right now because I feel like this series has been just in demand for such a long time, and now we finally get to do it. And yeah, I see that we have 4 people watching right now, so please drop in the chat, say hi, say like where you're watching from this world. I am very excited to be doing this project with you right now. Let me share my screen as usual, and let's dive into it. But yeah, please let me know, how are you doing today? What was your last meal? And what you are hoping to do out of this project. So today we are going into setting up a web app and IDE in the cloud. Now, context behind this project today, it is project 1 in a DevOps with AWS Series. Now, I am not joking when I tell you that all the time I'm meeting someone new in the community and they tell me, hey, I am so excited to learn about cloud computing, learn about AWS because I want to get into DevOps in the future. So to finally release this DevOps AWS series, I'm so excited for you. These 6 projects are going to be an amazing experience to just get that hands-on experience with learning how to set up something called a CI/CD pipeline with AWS. And that is a huge topic in the world of DevOps. Now, this is just project 1. So if you're completely new to DevOps and you don't have a lot of experience in this space, I didn't as well, just 6-7 months ago, but I absolutely think that this project is a great place to start. So please note, again, this project is it is easy peasy lemon squeezy, as the difficulty level says, and it absolutely requires 0 experience. It is completely free to do, provided that you delete all of your resources at the end of it, okay? And I'm going to clarify something important with the cost of this project. Please know that we are still going to be using EC2 instances in this project, which is completely free as long as you are still in the first year of using your AWS account. So the moment you tick over 1 year, your 1-year anniversary with your AWS account, your AWS free tier license or your free tier allowance with EC2 isn't the same anymore, right? So using EC2 will start costing a little bit, but it won't cost any more than $1 for this project today. Cool. Now, again, you would have heard me just drop the word like DevOps once or twice. So what is DevOps is a question that you might have. And it's a question that I had as well when I was very new to this journey. DK AMX says lol should be $1. Yeah, you're right. It should be $1. And in the world of DevOps, okay, DevOps is all about making sure that in companies like software companies that are delivering really big projects in teams of multiple developers, that these developers are collaborating in a very efficient way. So managing the many changes that come with having a big project across multiple people, it can get a bit messy, without the right systems in place. Rightfully so, because everyone is trying to work at the same time, but how do you maintain a code base that is correctly reflective of what the user is actually seeing, or correctly reflective of the changes that you are making to the code? So DevOps engineers work to bridge that gap between developers who are building the software and operations who deploy and manage the software. So when the company gets really big, sometimes these responsibilities are split, across developing and operations side of software. So on a day-to-day basis, DevOps engineers are here to automate and optimize all of that processes in that stage of making software. This goes from integration, goes into testing, releasing, deployment. Essentially, they make building software faster. You will start learning about this concept about the software lifecycle, but they are very key in making sure that process and that life cycle is less prone to error, and it's also more secure. Most importantly, that changes are happening even faster. So I have mad respect to DevOps engineers out there and to anyone that is wanting to go into this space. Um, so yeah, this is going to be a 6 project series, and this is project number 1. So you will be creating a CI/CD pipeline, which stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment across these 6 projects. So again, CI/CD pipelines. This is a concept that is really, really like prevalent in the world of DevOps, and it's all about helping developer teams like make that workflow smoother, cut down on manual tasks, so that you can deliver those new features to users and fix bugs much, much quicker, so you work with less chances of errors. You probably think like this definition is almost like a direct parallel of the world of DevOps. DevOps is actually a very, very big field of lots of different tools and frameworks, and CI/CD pipelines is simply one of them. But I really do think that a CI/CD pipeline is absolutely just like such a great example of the power of DevOps, and it definitely is like one of those great concepts to learn like first up. So when you are learning like the CI/CD pipeline, you're going to see that there are a lot of different parts to this. And this is why we're going to split it across 6 projects so we can go through every single part and give it like all of the love and attention that it deserves. Cool. So project 1 is all about learning the basics of building that web app. This will lay the foundations for your DevOps works across the next 5 projects. So across project 2 all the way across to project 6. So what we're doing right now is going to be applicable even if you're not wanting to go into like the rest of this series. Like you'll absolutely still learn something new, because building a web app in the cloud, using an IDE in the cloud, so key, even if you're not a DevOps engineer, by the way. But this project, part 1, is going to just literally set up the foundations for the remaining projects. So this project isn't exactly, okay, this is going to be work that only DevOps engineers are going to be doing. It's more that the DevOps work that's happening from parts 2 onwards definitely relies on you setting the groundwork now. Cool. Yeah, and if you want more projects, there are more right here. The most up-to-date list of projects will always be in the Nextwork community. So if you are not part of that community yet, please check out the link in the bio. That is how you can get access to this project guide that I'm looking at in the right-hand side, and you will get access to all of these other beginner-friendly AWS projects too. But today, we're going to jump straight into that project now, and we're going to use option 2, which is all about having very, very specific step-by-step guidance throughout the entire project. So to be clear, I just realized for some people watching this right now, it might be your first time seeing our project guides. So I'm going to go back and show you. But there are always 2 options when it comes to completing a project. So option 1 is like, tell me what to do. I'll figure out some parts of it on my own. And then option 2 is like, give me that step-by-step guide, because I'm completely new to AWS. I'm not sure where to start. Let's go through this project one small step at a time together. So of course, we're going to be doing option 2 together. And please, again, reminder, delete all of your resources by the end of the day, even if you don't finish the entire project, because that is key behind keeping that project free for you. Cool. Now, let's get ready to document, because you've just mentioned we need to delete everything by the end of today to make sure that this project is free, to make sure we're not racking up any charges quietly in the background. So to make sure that we still have evidence of the work that we've been doing, to make sure that we're actually reflecting on our learnings, to have things that we can share to our network or to show our employers at the end of this project, let's document it somewhere. We've made documentation extremely easy for you by creating this template for you. All you have to do is click on this link. So click on that link. Click on that link that's like right here. And then once you click on it, it opens in a new tab for you. Here is a template that will help you with writing your documentation for the entire project. All you have to do is click on File on that top right. You see that? Click on that, and let's click on, okay, that is an interesting look. But with that little pop out that comes out when you click on File, click make a copy. And now you have your own copy of this template that you can definitely edit, change the colors, make it your own, add some little spice to it. If you're a sticker kind of person, add a few stickers. Make sure to name it as well, so that you know for sure, like, oh yeah, that's my documentation template. This is my work. And you can absolutely delete that first slide once you're done. So first things first, if you're new to Canvas, when you just want to get a feel of it, let's just type down your name to replace that your full name bracket. But without further ado, we're going to go straight into step 1 of this project now. Now, step 1 of this project says, set up an IAM user. What is an IAM user and why are we setting one up? So you would have seen an IAM user come through in our previous project that is all about security. And you would have learned that in AWS, a user is a person or a computer that can do things on the AWS cloud. So when you create your AWS account for the first time, the login you get is called the root user of the AWS account. So if you think about a huge tree with lots of little branches, each branch can be like a separate user that has access to, your AWS account. But, at the bottom of that tree and that trunk, there's a root user where everything started. And that root user is basically the access that you have to your AWS account that you immediately get the moment you sign up. So this root user has complete access, to all AWS services and resources in your account, including your billing and personal information. If you've never used an IAM user before, and it's just like, oh, well, like I've still been able to access my AWS account, like I've still been using these different services, I've been like spitting out resources, that's because you're using a root user. So you're absolutely using a root user in that scenario. AWS actually recommends that you don't use the root user for your everyday tasks to protect it from security breaches. Instead, you should create an IAM user for your day-to-day activities. And trust me, like this is an important concept to learn as well. If you're learning any theoretical or you're learning any like certification around AWS, it definitely is best practice to separate kind of have different accounts when you're using AWS so that your root user, which is attached to all of your like billing information, is kind of kept secure and away from your day-to-day activities. IAM users, or you could just call them users, they are team members of your AWS account. So they have their own usernames and passwords, but they have limited access to your account's resources. Another thing to note, that it doesn't cost any money to create a user. So once you've created an IAM user, it can stay in your account for as long as you like. That is the one thing you can create for sure, like in this project, that you don't need to delete at the end of it. In fact, I recommend that you keep your IAM user after you create it, so that you can continue to use it, for your future projects as well. So if you don't have an IAM user already, here's how we can set one up. I have my AWS account console ready in front of me, as you can see in the left hand of the screen. And please note that, all you have to do is head to your AWS account, as your root user, and open that IAM console. So we're going to search for IAM now. Boom! That was pretty fast. So we'll just open the IAM console. And from the left-hand navigation panel, which if you don't see it right away, it's because it's probably folded. So you just click on that little, do you see that 3 lines on the side? We'll just click on that. And you're going to see that users is one of the options. So let's click into users. And you can see that I've already created an IAM account. And that would have been because I have been doing a lot of these projects in my, personal IAM account. For today's purposes, let's delete this so that we can start something from scratch. So you might not be seeing this on your screen, and that's because you would have, maybe this is your very first time creating an IAM user. In my case, I'm just deleting one that I already have so that we can start from scratch together. So for your new IAM user's name, use your name, IAM admin. Now, of course, you can name this in another way if you prefer, but the general recommendation is just to keep it really straightforward so that you don't need to think when you see this username. You're like, yep, I know exactly what it's for. Um, Absolutely provide yourself user access to the management console. And you can either use an auto-generated password or you can use a custom password. I'm just going to go for the auto-generated password. And should the user create a new password at next sign-in, it is recommended. And I recommend that you do this too if you absolutely want to create your own custom password, like at another time. For now, I don't actually need this. I prefer just using that auto-generated password. Um, and if you'd like, if you already know you have like a password that you think is very, very secure, absolutely just type it in here. And just make sure that it meets all of the criteria. It has to be at least 8 characters long. It has to have at least 3 of the following: uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, symbols. So you just have to make sure that it has at least 3 out of these 4 options. But I quite like to use just the auto-generated password because I know it's secure. I know where to find it again. And it automatically meets this criteria for me. Cool. Now, in the permissions page, this is quite an important one, so please make sure that you're checking the right options here. You'll be attaching policies directly. Now, if you are slightly unfamiliar to the concept of policies, think of a policy as like a rule, or think of policy as some like a statement around what you have access to. And in this case, there's a policy that will give us the level of access that is perfect for your IAM user. So that is called administrator access. So when you come down here, type in administrator access, and let's just expand it to make sure it's just an administrator access, and that's it. Don't use any of like the ones with the dash and something at the end of it. Administrator access basically gives you full access to all of the resources in AWS. So do you see how the statement itself literally just says on all resources in the account, give it, allow this account the permission to perform any action that it wants. So it can honestly it has a power of a lot. It can honestly do a lot. The only thing it doesn't have the same level of access to compared to a root user is just the billing information. So again, it really hones in the importance of just having your IAM user separate to your root user for the security of your billing information. And Abbas Ibrahim says, I'm here. So thank you so much, Abbas. I'm so happy that you're here too. I hope you enjoy this project. So once you've ticked administrator access, let's go next. And we're ready for the next part. So let's create the user. Oh, that was fast. It created it very, very quick. So before you go, please take a screenshot of your retrieve password page. So this is the page that we're on. And take a screenshot of that. Take a screenshot of this console sign-in details area. Wendraw Mao in the comments says, do we need to clean up the IAM users by the end of the day? Ooh, I love that question. And the answer is no, you don't need to clean that up. In fact, once you've created your IAM user, I highly recommend that you just keep that IAM user, because the best practice is that you use your IAM user for your day-to-day activities, in your AWS account. So, if you were to delete it, it means that in the next project, you're likely to either A, go through the admin of creating another IAM user with the exact same permissions, or B, feel a bit like I'm just gonna take a little cut a few corners and just do the project and my root user anyway. Just so you know, IAM users don't cost any money to create, so you can absolutely have as many IAM users as you want without needing to pay AWS any money. So it's also absolutely safe in the billing kind of aspect to keep your IAM user. No worries. So in my screenshot, we are now in documentation land. We have already set up our IAM user, so it's now time to document that step. Please, in now that you've dragged your screenshot into the frame, let's reposition that screenshot. By the way, you can always double click on it so that you can reposition it. I quite like the console sign-in details. So I'm going to just focus my screenshot on here. Okay. And now we get to fill in some prompts. Prompts are cool. So let's do this. Now, an IAM user is an additional user that gets access to my AWS accounts resources. When creating a user, I can specify in detail. Oh, I can specify in detail the level of access it has to my accounts, resources, and services. Full stop. Period. It's important to create IAM users because the root user is vulnerable to, security breaches that could result in my billing information being accessed without my permission. Awesome. Now, before I head to that third bullet point, I see that we have Muhammad sending a question in the community, so in the chat. So thank you, Muhammad. You've asked, hi, can you please tell that this project will be shared with us in the community? Looking forward to do it for practice. Thank you so much, Muhammad. I'm looking forward for you to do it too. And yes, it is absolutely already in the community. So sorry guys, slight detour, but I think it is very key to show our friends how you can find us in the community. When you're in the community, and again, if you're not part of the community yet, this is new to you, please click on the link in the description. It will take you right here. Now, so when you're here, please visit the tab that's called All AWS Projects. You know what? I'm in fact just going to put that link in the chat right now for you, Mohammed. And you can see that this project is already here, Project 5. So once you click here, and you click Start Your Project, you will get taken to that landing page for the entire project. And you can choose which option you want to do, option 1 or option 2, to get started right away. All right, now let's go into finishing up our documentation. So the last step was I created an IAM user with what kind of permissions did you grant your user? So I created an thank you, awesome. Absolutely. So I created an IAM user with administrator access. This means my IAM user is allowed to perform all possible actions to all the resources in my account. It's an amazing access level to grant, and make sure that in the real world that your administrator access is given sparingly, okay? Because it is absolutely one of the highest tiers of access you can grant to an IAM user. Cool. We have taken the screenshot. We have written our prompts. Congratulations. We will now move on to the next half of the step, which is to download your access details in a CSV file. Okay, it's downloaded for me. You can see it over here. And now you're ready to start using your IAM user. Are you ready? Are you ready? All you have to do is log out first. Log out of your main account. So we'll just sign out now. And head to your CSV file to log in to your IAM user. So now I've gotten a bit excited, and I did not copy my IAM user's console sign-in URL, but it is in the CSV file that you download. So when you're here, your CSV file is going to have your username, your password, okay, and your console sign-in URL. So this is going to be the URL that you use to sign in to your AWS account as the new IAM user. You just paste that into your browser, hit enter, and you're right here. Okay, so you're signing in as your IAM user, and if you're like, oh wait, what's my username? What's my password? Again, this is in your CSV file, so just refer to that CSV file you've downloaded. Copy in the username. Boom. Copy in the password. Boom. Nice. And you can sign in right away. Okay, cool. Very nice. Now, please make sure that you are signed in as your IAM user before you continue with this project. You definitely need to use an IAM user for this project series. Okay, maybe in this project specifically, you might not see the difference of using your IAM user from using the root account, but I absolutely recommend it, especially if you're going to continue on in this DevOps series of projects. If you just want to make sure that you're logged into your IAM user, you can confirm that in the top right-hand corner. You see how IAM admin pops up. This is the name that I've set for my IAM user, and it is reflected perfectly now in my account. Cool. Are we ready to get into setting up that IDE and web app in the cloud? It's going to get pretty buzzy. I'm quite excited for this. So the next step, okay, now that we've created our IAM user, we are ready to dive into this. We're going to launch a new Cloud9 IDE. Whoa, you might be thinking, what is an IDE? An IDE is a general term for software that helps developers write, debug, and manage their code efficiently. So when developers are creating their code, absolutely, there are some apps or like some websites or some software that can help you write your code, manage your code, manage like some different tools that can help you with writing code faster or with like writing better quality code. And that kind of software is called an IDE. So an IDE stands for an integrated development environment. I know it sounds a little bit techy, but please know that it is almost like how Google Docs is a great environment for writing documentation, like for writing documents. Why? Because it's like, oh, it has tools for me to highlight, to bold, use different text, like add a horizontal line. I can like export things as a PDF. Like it gives me writing with an oomph, doesn't it? So IDE is honestly so similar in that concept, but for writing code, okay? Writing code feels a lot nicer in an IDE compared to if you were to use that raw text editor. And IDEs are so important in the real world when you're creating software. In most cases that I've seen, like it has to be like at least 99%. Come on, give me that. I think at least 99% of like software that I've seen, of it that the developers would have been using IDEs to create that software, to write that software. Now, what is Cloud9? So where does Cloud9 fit into this picture? AWS Cloud9 is a specific type of IDE that's hosted on AWS. So you can think of IDEs as just like a type of software that a lot of different companies or that a lot of different providers can provide. So, Google Docs is one provider of like a great writing tool, but so is Microsoft Word, so is Notion, so is like Insert, cool tool that you can use to create a document, and same with IDEs. Cloud9 is an example of an IDE. We're going to be using it today because it's hosted on AWS. You can access Cloud9 from a web browser from anywhere without needing to install heavy software on your computer. Most IDEs have to be downloaded because of how many tools are inside an IDE. It becomes a lot more efficient if you just download it as an app. But where Cloud9 really stands out is that it is still in the cloud. You don't need to download a software to use it. It really is the power of the cloud in action, a little meta, I feel, that Cloud9 itself is, in the cloud too. So once you're logged into your IAM user, what we'll do next is we'll head to the Cloud9 console by searching it here, Cloud9. Give me Cloud9. And you can just click into it. And you're voila at the home page for Cloud9. So make sure you're at the region that suits you best. For me, I'm in Oregon. I always get tripped up. I'm like, Oregon or Oregon? No, I'm at Oregon. And make sure that once you're in that region, jump straight to creating your environment. When you create your environment, name your environment Nextwork IDE. The environment type is going to be a new EC2 instance. And then the instance type is T2.micro, which is the free tier eligible instance type. Make sure you're using T2.micro to keep your project free. And then the platform. Okay, don't get tripped up on this. Change this from Amazon Linux 2023 to Amazon Linux 2. I've made this mistake when I was doing this project, when I was like trying to test this project with others. Don't keep it at 2023, okay? I'm gonna say that one more time. Change that to Amazon Linux 2. And once that's set up, you're actually ready to just create your environment and get started. So first things first, what is an environment? So when we talk about an environment, we're meaning a set of requirements or resources required to run and build your software application. Just as a chef might need kitchen tools like ingredients, appliances, set up to cook a meal, a software environment provides like all of those necessary tools and libraries and settings a developer might need to build and run their application. An environment is absolutely key to building an application. You will see this term get thrown around a lot. And every app could have its own unique requirements to operate, which is why you should create like a different environment for every single app that you build. Otherwise, if you're using the exact same environment, a new app you build might be like, oh, I don't have the right libraries, or I don't have the right requirements for me to build. Ideally, you should be tailoring your environment to what you're building, not the other way around. You shouldn't be tailoring what you're building to like the environment you've created for yourself. DKAMX has asked a really great question here. Oh, is 2023 not working? Absolutely, 2023 is like a working platform that you can use to create an IDE with Cloud9. It's just that for this project specifically, some of the commands that we're running won't work the same if we're using Amazon Linux 2023. You're going to end up running into a few errors that is going to be very, very hard to fix. Whereas if you run these errors using the Amazon Linux 2 that we've chosen, those errors would not pop up. So it is purely for this project's purposes that Amazon Linux 2 is definitely preferable over Amazon Linux 2023. And Gerald also says hi, just joining in. Hi, Gerald. Exciting to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. Now, I see that this is a repeat of the steps above, so apologies for that. So we can skip through those. Now that we've created it, you see this environment is available now. We've successfully created it. And the Cloud9 IDE, you can just click open to open up that IDE. So we are opening an environment, like a coding environment that you've just created for yourself. This is awesome. And wow, would you look at that? That was done so quickly. So shout out to Cloud9 for doing this like so quickly. I'm not sure if you've used an IDE like that's downloaded to your laptop before, but when I do like use IDEs that are downloaded to my laptop, it honestly can take a bit of time before I can get to this page. Because this page basically means like you are ready to start like writing, developing, managing your code here. Sometimes IDEs can take much longer before it can get to this stage. So introducing you to your IDE, it might be your very first time seeing one. Again, an IDE at the end of the day is just an environment to help you write and prepare your code. So for example, it's almost like opening an empty Google Doc or like an empty Google Drive account. You're looking at an empty Google Drive account right now if you've used Google Drive before. So for example, in the middle, this is kind of like our working space. Okay, so it's kind of like how when you open a new document or open a new spreadsheet in Google Docs, you get taken to a new tab and you get to have the entire page to yourself. But imagine if you create a new spreadsheet and that spreadsheet is just it's now open in this small window here. Like this is going to be your working space, where you get to edit your code and manage your code and do the typing. And at the bottom here is your terminal. Now, your terminal is almost like a control center for everything that's happening within your project. So your terminal can be used to download things. Your terminal can be used to navigate through your project, head to a different folder. It absolutely is required for you to be able to manage your project. So you'll be using the terminal a lot for the rest of this project too. Now, on the left-hand side is your File Explorer. So this File Explorer is going to get a lot longer by the end of this project, but you can think of it as if you've used Google Drive before, you can sometimes have a list view or a nested view of all of your Google Drive accounts folders. It could be a folder of a folder containing multiple folders, and those folders have their own folders. And then as you keep clicking in, there's documents finally at the end of the journey. But it's the same here, right? This is just simply a file explorer to show you all of the files that's in your environment right now. Now, someone in the chat has asked, Abbas Ibrahim can we use an existing EC2 instance? Yes, you can. I do recommend using a new EC2 instance because maybe if you're using an existing one, it might not be configured in the best way to run an IDE. So you might run into a few errors, in that case. But absolutely, yes, you can use an existing EC2 instance. Cool. Now, let's get started in our IDE, why don't we? So, I lied. Apologies, team. It looks like we are actually in documentation mode. So let's take a screenshot of our IDE's welcome page, because let's document that this might be your very first time seeing an IDE. It's going to be pretty exciting. Start of a new journey. And let's take that screenshot now. Yeah, this will do. I'm quite happy with this. Okay, no, I want I want a wider view. I like my screenshots to look a bit wider. Okay, yeah, I'm happier with this one. Just not me, just literally magnifying and then shrinking my page in the pursuit of the perfect screenshot. But absolutely, once you've taken your screenshot, head back to your documentation template, and you will just go to the slide that's titled Launch a Cloud9 IDE, paste that screenshot, and let's fill in the prompts. So let's head to your documentation template now. And it says, Launch a Cloud9 IDE. Paste that in. Looking juicy, looking good. Quite a fan of this screenshot, good job. And let's fill in those prompts now. Oh, these are some good prompts. So our prompts say an IDE is an environment for developers to write, manage, and debug their code. Just like how Google Docs is a companion for writers to write documents, to create documents. IDEs are companions for developers to build software, to build their application edit their code. Again, you'll notice that my definition of an IDE just now is completely different to the text definition of an IDE in our step-by-step guide. So honestly, my advice is to pursue just being able to write your learnings over like perfecting everything, like having a perfect definition. I'm sure a way better definition for an IDE is out there, but if this is how you're like thinking about how an IDE works right now, write it down. It's a great piece of like documentation for something new that you've just learned. All right. I used AWS Cloud9, yes I did, to launch an environment. An environment means, ooh, this is cool. An environment means a set of resources required or set of resources that work together to help me build a software, build a piece of software, an application, every application has its own needs, e.g. dependencies, libraries, tools, etc. So this means the environment that I'm building will be tailored to the application, to the web application. I quite like the wording, the application I build more. So this means the environment that I'm creating will be tailored to the web application I build. Cool. Now, using Cloud9 meant, what is the benefit of using Cloud9 over most IDEs? Do we remember this? Pop it in the chat if you remember. But absolutely, the benefit of using Cloud9 is that you don't need to download the software. Did not need to download this software in order to use an IDE. I think that's awesome, Saving a download could mean a lot to different people. To some people, it's like, oh, thank goodness, my computer has been running out of space for a long, long time. I can't bear to download anything else. For some people, it's like, oh, thank goodness. Look, like, not having to download anything is great because there might be a few security limits on my computer right now that prevents me from downloading an IDE. This is a true story. I've had this before. So thank you for just letting me use an IDE right away so I don't have to go through the pains of like needing someone to approve my download of an IDE. Absolutely, it could be a great way to just test whether I actually need an IDE before you download and commit to one as well. So perfect, a great benefit indeed. DKAMX in the chat says, there's another good benefit of using new instance. It's configured to automatically terminate when you delete Cloud9 environment, but existing one, you have to do it manually. DKAMX, that is a great contribution. Thank you so much. So DKAMX is responding to Abbas's previous question about whether we can use an existing instance. And yeah, that is a great benefit. Not having to like delete your EC2 instance at the very end, because if you leave that EC2 instance running, again, you might end up getting charged for it. So yeah, definitely could be a great money saver. Also could be a great like time saver to just create a new EC2 instance for running your IDE. Cool beans. I think we're ready to move on to the next step now. Now, our next step, I'm just going to scroll past this, which is a little quick breakdown of like what's happening in this page. We have just talked through it, so we won't need to go through this again. Now, the next step is going to be pretty juicy because it's a little bit technical sounding, but please know we're just going to go through this step by step together. What we're going to do now is install two very, very important tools for developing a web app. Okay, these two tools are called Maven and Java. Now, we're going to be learning these as we go along. Okay, so first things first, now that we have our Cloud9 development environment up and running, let us create a simple web application. What is a web application, you might wonder? These are websites or web pages that are dynamic and interactive. You might find it hard to tell the difference between the terms web app and websites. I know I did. It felt like these terms were interchangeable. Do they just mean the same thing? Why isn't web app called a web app? Are we just like complicating things for no reason? But there is a difference. A web app is a type of website. So website is, you can think of it as like a blanket term for things that like pages or like any sort of resource that you can visit on the web that you can just type into your browser and visit, like a URL, click enter. What pops up on your page is a website. But there are two dominant like kinds of websites out there. Some websites are called static websites. So these are websites that show the exact same text or content to all users. Next, a web app is much more dynamic and interactive. If you're doing tasks like sending emails, scrolling a social media feed, you're managing documents like typing in Google Docs, you're entering data using you're using a web app. These things that don't look the same for every single person. Not everyone, no two accounts, I think, will receive identical emails. People get completely personalized social media feeds. When you're writing in Google Docs, you could be writing a completely different document to what someone else across the table from you was writing. When you're entering data, what you're entering could be completely different. And, the output of what you're typing in can look completely different compared to, what someone else is doing with that exact same piece of software. So please know that a very, very simple test for figuring out whether something is a web app is whether all users will see identical pages, and I mean identical, and have the identical experience on your website. If they won't, you're likely using a web app. What I really love about this is actually, I just had this realization. You are actually seeing an example of a static website and a web app literally right now. What's happening on this right-hand side is the step-by-step guide to this project. Is everyone seeing the exact same step-by-step project, word for word? Yeah, you are. If you're opening this URL, for this project, and you open this in your window, yeah, you're going to see the exact same page. It's a static website. What if I gave you a link to open your AWS console? Is your console dashboard going to look exactly the same as my dashboard? No, it's not. Because the AWS account or the AWS management console is a web app. So yeah, two great examples of a static website, of a web app right in front of us. It was right in front of us this whole time, literally. Now we're going to install Apache Maven using the commands below. And you might be wondering, okay, what is Maven? And Maven is a very powerful tool that automates the building of software. So the topic of building a software, again, is a pretty technical term, but how we'll understand the term building for now is that it's just a very important multi-step process that transforms the code written by developers like you into a final product or a final piece of code, machine code, that your computers can run. At the end of the day, when you're writing code to develop your application, your code is not going to be in a language that machines can inherently understand. At the end of the day, I know code already seems like not human language. It's not in paragraphs or bullet points or lists. It looks like a completely different language. But again, that language is not exactly what computers speak as well. Some sort of translating needs to happen. And building is all about making sure that your code can actually be understood by the computers that you're going to run it through. Well, the computers that are going to run it. Now, the key steps in building typically includes 1, compiling. So actually converting that code into that machine code. 2, linking. This means combining that compiled machine code, so the translated code, with the additional dependencies to create a single program that the computer will just run all together. Because when you're writing a piece of software, when you're writing application code, sometimes your application is going to need external resources for your application to actually function. So an example of this in the world of Google Docs, since we've been using this analogy throughout this project so far, let's say that I'm writing in Google Docs and I'm like, I'm not a fan of the fonts that are currently available in Google Docs. I want to import my own font and write with my own font. The font you import into Google Docs is going to be an external resource because Google Docs does not inherently have that font. So you are going to need to figure out a way to pull that font into Google Docs so that you can use it. Again, with your software application, sometimes you're going to require resources that a computer might not inherently have, but will need in order to run that application that you've built. So you will need to define by the way, you should be downloading this. It's these external resources are called dependencies. So you'd be like, oh, by the way, import this dependency into your computer so that you can run this application. And linking will be like, oh, okay, I need to import this dependency. Why not I compile the code that you have, as well as the code around importing your additional dependencies all in one place, so that the computers that run it can have all of that in one place and just run that all together, saving it a lot of time and making sure that it functions as well. Packaging is assembling that machine code file into a packaged form. For Java projects, and we're going to be writing our web app in Java. We'll explain Java in a minute. This will be called a jar file, which is Java Archive Resource. And you'll learn more about jar in Project 3 of this DevOps series. For now, please know that a jar file makes your program easily distributed or deployed in other environments, because different computers represent different environments. For example, my MacBook probably has a very, very different collection of resources inside, or different tools inside, compared to someone else that's running a Windows 10 computer. So a jar file really helps to make sure that your machine code can at least be somewhat comprehensible between these different environments. And 4 is testing. Running automated tests to just make sure your software works without bugs or issues. This is very, very important for basically you to catch different errors that can come up before you start to deploy this, and to make it accessible to other users. Each of these steps is absolutely crucial for producing a functioning software application, and tools like Maven automate these processes for you. So you don't need to worry about manually compiling your code and translating it into machine code, and so on and so forth with the rest of these steps that we've just gone over. Now, I hope that kind of communicates to you the importance of having Maven when you're building software. And in this case, again, as a reminder, we're building a web application. So let's download Maven so that we can use this tool to build our application. How to download? We have to run this code. And I'm just going to make sure. Okay, we're going to copy that code, and you can copy it all together. Just click copy here and find this in your terminal. Okay, expand this in your terminal. Let's paste it and click enter. Would you look at that? Like, it works straight away. It goes into work straight away. You don't need to do anything else for now. Just hands off. Just watch that code just start. Uh, just watch your terminal start populating with lots of different updates. It's basically updating you right now the different kinds of packages or like tools that it's going to start downloading into your IDE, into your EC2 instance as well. So look, it's already downloading 1 out of 73, so on and so forth. So this basically means that Maven is not just like one single little like piece of software. It's actually a collection of a lot of different tools that together work together to become Maven. And you need to have all of this together. Otherwise, like Maven won't exactly work. Now, what your commands have just done is it downloaded a setup file that tells your computer where to find Maven. Then they install Maven right there in that spot, all in the space of a few lines. Super effective. Now, once you've, again, pasted these commands, don't forget to press enter on your keyboard, which is what we did. And next, we're going to install Java. So that was Maven ticked off and downloaded just like that. And next up is Java. Now, what is Java? And specifically, we're going to be downloading something called Amazon Corretto 8. So what is Amazon Corretto 8 as well? Java is a very popular programming language used to build different types of applications, from mobile apps all the way to large like enterprise systems. Java is almost like a backbone that is how like literally the language used to build that software. It is incredibly widely used. It is quite well known to be a bit of a hard programming language to understand and use. But in our scenario, it is absolutely key to creating our web application as well. So how are we going to install Java? We're going to be using these lines. Now, what we're going to be downloading specifically is Corretto 8. So Corretto 8 is a version of Java that Amazon has created by themselves, and it is absolutely free to download. It is also incredibly reliable to use as well. So let's use it. And if you're wondering, yes, there are multiple different versions of Java, and I feel like with every new version of Java that comes out, it really does just make sure that the software that gets built with Java is like up to modern standards in terms of like what is good code and like what should be like the functionalities of code. Oftentimes when you see like an update to Java, it can feel like like a pretty big deal in in the world of like developing. But it absolutely is great just to make sure that everything is up to standards, because the world of like, what is good code and what is clean code or what should code be capable of is always changing and updating itself. Cool. And, Corretto 8 is just one version of many, many different versions of Java. So let's download Corretto 8 in our terminal as well. And let's run that. Boom, boom, boom. off it goes. This one is going to take a little bit of time, and I'm now regretting that I didn't run this before I started doing my little yarn about Java. But no worries. We're going to let it take its course while we look at the next few steps. So the next few steps is first we're going to verify that Java has been installed correctly, and to always to do that, all you have to do is ask your terminal, what is the version of Java that is in my environment right now? We're actually ready to run this code now. So let's do that. The moment you see this line, which is kind of like your this is your AWS IAM users account name, and you can see this like squiggly line /environment. When you see this line, it means like it is now ready for the next command. So let's just put in our next command here. And look, it tells us that we do have a version of Java in our environment, and it's called 1.8.0. And this is absolutely the version number that we're looking for because we're looking for Java 8 being installed in our environment. Now, here's a little hint. If your version number is not 1.8, you can absolutely just use this command, and it will help you with changing your version over to number 8. Next, let's make sure that we've installed Maven correctly, and to do that, we'll just copy this command and paste that in here. Nice! I think it's working too. Apache Maven is 3.5.2, which is exactly the version that we want to see. So with that success ticked off, let's take a screenshot of our IDE's terminal to make with all the commands visible. You don't need to have the entire history of your terminal in your screenshot, not at all. But what I will do is I'll just make sure that the Java version and the Maven version are visible. I'm quite happy with this. I think this should do. Okay, and once you've taken your screenshot, let's head back to our documentation slide titled Install Maven in Java, and let's fill that out. So here, install Maven in Java. Let's paste this in. Boom. And I think we're ready. I think we're ready to go. Looks good, eh? I think it looks pretty good. Cool. Here we are. Now, again, when it comes to writing your documentation, if you're ever intimidated by having to explain Maven and Java and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've only just learned what they mean, please don't hesitate to have a look at your documentation guide, your project guide, and reference that in your work. So Maven is a tool that helps developers with the building of their software. Automating the steps required for my application to be I would say, to become a final product that machines, e.g. computers, can actually run. Maven is required in this project because I am building a web app in a specific programming language. Which will not be able to build on its own without the help of Maven. Java is the specific programming language I am using to create my web application. Java is required in this project because, well, to be more specific, it is not like an absolute requirement to use Java. It's just that it is a versatile tool for creating different applications, including web apps. The Java version I'm using for this project is, do you remember it? It's Amazon Corretto 8. It's Corretto 8. That is the Java version I'm using. Wonderful. I think our documentation is looking pretty fly. So I'm more than happy to move on. I'm just going to expand this window so our little 8 can move on to the same line. But yeah, this is great. I'm quite happy with this. Awesome. In this case, let's move on to the final part of the step. The next step actually, which is to actually create the application itself. So we have installed the tools, but let's actually create the application. We haven't actually created the web app yet. We've installed Maven, we've installed Java, which are the tools required to build it. But let's go ahead with building it. So what we're going to be doing next is, all right, again, as a quick refresh, this is my Cloud9 terminal. This is how things are looking right now in Cloud9. And here are my steps here. So let's use this command called mvn to generate a sample Java web app. To do this, use these commands. So let's use these commands now. I'm going to copy those, paste it in here, and then press enter. Boom, it's going to start building. It's going to, oh, sorry, not build, but like creating that Java web app. It's going to do its little dance. So while we let that run, let's break down those commands for us. First, what is mvn? When you run mvn commands, you're asking Maven to perform tasks like creating a new project, which is what we're doing, or building an existing one. You're building an existing one being, I have this application code with me. Can you help me run it? And you just basically ask mvn. You run mvn, and you request it to build a piece of code that represents an application. Now the mvn archetype :generate command, which is over here. Do you see that here? That command specifically tells Maven to create a new project from a template, which Maven calls archetype. This command sets up a basic structure for your project so you don't have to start creating a web app from scratch. How do you see that it's done its job? All you have to do is check out your File Explorer on the very left-hand side over here. And now you might notice, oh, what is this interesting thing? A folder has popped up. It's called Network Web Project. Okay, expand that. And take a look. This is Maven's awesome setup work in action. So let's just expand that. Wow, very cool. Okay, so there's a lot of files being created, and you might notice oh my gosh, all of these are just created automatically. How did this happen? I'm not really across this. So what has just been created on this here represents a web app, and what you've used is Maven, which is a tool that really helps you with creating blueprints for applications. So Web App Maven used a template called archetype, and it just decided to go ahead and pretty much use that template to create a web app for you, so you don't have to start from absolute scratch. And because you're using Java, what you'll be using is Java to define your application as well. Now you're going to see that there is a file here called index.jsp. So we're going to modify that file to customize the HTML code. So please make it your own. You're going to see that it looks kind of similar to an HTML file itself. But if you're wondering, what is index.jsp? What's the difference from HTML? Index.jsp is a file used in Java web apps. It's similar to an HTML file, as you might notice if you've done any web development before. It's similar to an HTML file because it contains some markup to display web pages. But index.jsp can also include Java code, which lets it generate dynamic content. So the content that can change depending on the circumstance, like user input, data from a database, a social media feed that's always updating. You can't create dynamic websites with HTML files, so those are static, and it can't include Java code, which is what makes a JSP file very, very different from HTML. So you can, in that sense, notice that index.jsp is what helps us create a web app, not just a static website. Oh, and also as a side note, you might be like, but it looks exactly like an HTML file. And the reason for that is because we haven't added the Java code yet, but you'll see that Java code magic in action once you start to implement that in your web app too. So this actually wraps up the meat of our project for today. So please take a screenshot of your IDE with your file explorer and the index.jsp editor visible. So I'll take a screenshot here like this. I think this should be enough. Maybe this kind of vibe. I'll just make this bigger so my screenshot can actually see it. If you're wondering how I did this, all I did was I just selected all of the code in my code editor kind of area, and I pressed Command plus, or it could be Control plus if you're using Windows. But yeah, let's take a screenshot with that bigger text and add that to our documentation template. So I'm going to create my application now. Put that in here. That screenshot fit perfectly, so I'm very happy. And we can now fill in the prompts for this page. Now, very first prompt, it asks us to create a simple Java web app. I ran the command ... Which nvn command or which maven command helped you create that new project? Can you remember? You might not remember. Honestly, I can't tell you that command off by heart myself. So I will quickly find that step-by-step guide and find that maven command as well. Let's go look for it now. Where did it go? Do you see it? Stop. It's right here. So I ran this command, nvn archetype generate, to help me create that new project. Once the web app was created, my IDE's file explorer ... What gets created in your file explorer? My IDE's file explorer was populated. Populated with a Java web app structure. So I did not have to create one from scratch. To customize this web app's display, I updated what was a specific file in your project that contains that markup for your web page, that contains this HTML code. It was called index.jsp. Very well. I'm very, very pleased with how this documentation looks for this step. I think we are looking good to finish up. If you'd like, you can actually add a sentence about index.jsp. I would like to actually just add a bit of detail right now to say the difference index.jsp and an index.html file is that index.jsp can contain Java code, which is what could support the creation of a web application and not just a static website. That's something that I thought was a great differentiation. A great reason for using index.jsp instead. Okay, I'm just reformatting dragging these pieces down so there's lots of space for my text. This looks great. And if we continue scrolling down and down, you're going to see that you have actually wrapped up the main part of today's project. That was cool. Congratulations to you for making it this far. What you could do next is wrap up your documentation. It can take, honestly, as little as 10 minutes to wrap up your documentation. We have lots of prompts across the template to help you. First of all, don't forget to replace your profile picture, as well as instances of your full name, as well as your GitHub repo if you have one. If you don't have one, hey, Don't forget to delete this. You can absolutely delete it, and it can just be about your full name, or it can be about your LinkedIn profile. You can use like a LinkedIn logo here instead of a GitHub logo, and type in your LinkedIn URL here instead. Like that could totally work. Don't forget to share your key learnings in the slide that's titled My Key Learnings. If you don't see that slide, let me swap these around so you can see it. If you look at the bottom here, there's a slide that's called My Key Learnings. And perfect, is where you can detail everything that also have prompts to them as well. If you're a bit lost and like, oh, what key learnings should I share? All right. And any final thoughts? Share them in that slide that's titled Final Thoughts in the very last slide here. And once you type those out, actually don't forget to just tidy up the final details in the last slide. Okay, make sure that this is all looking cute and make sure that your first slide also has all of these details replaced with your own picture and your own GitHub repo. Before we finish, actually, I decided I'm going to show you a quick shortcut on how you can make this replicated across your entire documentation in just an instant. In your uploads, you can click Upload Files, okay? And from here, upload a image of you. I'm gonna just try use this image because it has like has my face on it. So I'm gonna put like the face. I'm gonna crop this image so that I'm using the part with my face in it as well. Now, all you have to do is once you have your image here, you just drag it into the frame, like literally click and drag it into the circle. And then you can double click on this, to reposition it. Oh, this is looking a bit big. I don't want my entire face to fill it up like this. You can reposition your photo so it fits nicely in the frame. Quite like this kind of look. This doesn't look half bad. So once you click done, just click done. And your GitHub repo, in my case, it is, Natasha Ong is coding. And voila, once you have that, all you have to do is select all of it. Select all of it like this. I'm holding Shift down on my keyboard so I can multi-select, and press group so that all in one group, and then copy what you have here. And once you flick on to the next page, click paste, and then head over here to reposition and replace what's in here. You can even, you can put it here, and you'll notice it looks a bit bigger because it's absolutely bigger in the cover page compared to the other pages. But you can just like shrink it down so that it's the same size as what it should be. And once that's done, you can delete what's beneath it. And then drag on over your copy like this. And when you're happy with that, you can replicate it across your entire documentation template. So, you can delete this and just click paste, because I just copied it again from what it looked like here. And then again, delete it all here, click paste. Again, delete it all here, click paste, so on and so forth. Very easy, eh? And just like that, once you have typed in all of your learnings, you've already tidied up the rest of your documentation. All you did was just paste in those copies of your images. You're all done. So please don't forget to share your work. If you're feeling shy about sharing, you can share it within the community first. You can head to the project page in the community. Oopsie daisies. And you can scroll to the comments, and say and show off that you were, want the first person to complete this project and share in the community. For example, I'm done. Thank you for this project. Pray hands. I love the pray hands emoji. And then from here, from your Canva template, download, click on that share button in the top right. And then from the panel that pops up, click download. And then from here, change that file type from PNG to PDF standard. Okay. So now it's just one single PDF file, and click download, and it's downloading. Okay, it's doing its job. It's just going to take a few seconds to download. And then from here, we are going to, if you missed that, we're going to click on that little photo icon, and then choose the file, and then select the documentation template that you just downloaded as a PDF. Oh, sorry. It says, please upload a valid JPEG, PNG, or GIF image. Sorry, not the right icon. I meant the pin, this little paper clip. I think that's called a paper clip icon. And then attach the file here. That was my bad. Make sure you select your PDF, and it gets uploaded straight away. Very well, very nice. And then you can click post, and then you're done. Looks good. Do you see how the community just rallies themselves around a new project? You can absolutely see that this is going to be something that the community celebrates together when you finish a project and share your documentation. So I love to see everyone doing this. We will absolutely be there to cheer you on as well. Now, once that's done, you've kind of made your first step in sharing. Share it on LinkedIn. And sharing is super easy. In this project step-by-step guide, we have given you a special URL that you can just click. So click here. And it is going to open a pre-filled post for you. So it's already written the copy. You don't even need to copy and paste. It's already here for you. Please just make sure that the @Nextwork turns into an actual @ because that is the one thing that can't be pre-configured. Change that to an actual tag. And then you can attach your documentation by clicking More and Add a Document. On the Choose File, select the documentation documentation that you just downloaded. You have to give it a title as well. And I always just copy the title that was already given. Click Done. And just like that, you're done. You just click Post. Was that literally done in 30 seconds? I think so. I think you just did that in 30 seconds. How cool is that? And it's out in the world. So once you've done all this, you can delete your resources. So please make sure in your Cloud9 console, delete the environment you've set up. Next, in your EC2 console, delete the EC2 instance that your Nextwork IDE has created to run the environment. So if I know that DKAMX in the comments have suggested that it can be configured automatically to terminate, but I would absolutely recommend going into your EC2 console and just checking that whether that instance is actually still in your console so that you can terminate it as well. And that will be a wrap right after you delete those resources. So let's just delete those resources right away. Okay. Let's head back to our account. Not this IDE page. Head back to your console, which is right here. And select that little round button next to your IDE and select Delete up here. Okay. Type Delete. Confirm that. And it might take several minutes, but give it its time. And then in your console, we will delete that EC2 instance. So EC2, open that in a new tab. By the way, I just realized I might not have mentioned this, but if you're new to EC2 and you're like, what is this? Like, I am new to EC2 instances, all you have to do is check out the security project in the community. So that'll be project number 4 when you're in the community. Check that one out. It gives you an in-depth kind of explanation of EC2 instances. in action as well. So you'll be deploying some EC2 instances, and as you deploy them, you get to learn like what are EC2 instances, how do they work. That one's a great project too. So as you can see, I don't actually have any EC2 instances running, which means that perhaps that instance that is being used to run my environment has already been deleted, which is awesome. My IDE looks like it is still deleting, which can take a few minutes. Oh, and it successfully deleted. That was fast. Just like that, my account is now clean of any resources that might get charged. So that costed $0, this whole project. And that's a wrap. Oh my goodness, that was definitely the first project in the entire DevOps series already done. Congratulations, you've taken your first step. And what you've done in this project, which is project 1, will lay the foundations for a very packed learning journey ahead, and I'm very, very excited for you. In the next project, you'll use a new service called AWS Code Commit to create a repository for your web app's code. My goodness, it is also another very important concept in terms of the world of like developing software. I can't wait for to do part 2 together. In the meantime, today you have learned how to set up an IAM user. You've learned how to launch an IDE. You know, what are IDEs? And you've even launched one using Cloud9. You've installed 2 important tools for creating your web app. They're called Maven and Java. And you've even like created the web application itself using Maven. You've created like the structure of it. Awesome work. You're absolutely a DevOps engineer in the making, and I can't wait to see what you get up to with the rest of this project series. Again, if you'd like a copy of that project guide as well as the documentation template, the links to those are in the comments, and they will take you straight to our community right here. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Once you get into the community, you can find your project by heading into the All AWS Projects channel and selecting project number 5. That is this project that we're doing today. And you will just have to click here to get started. Okay? Get started at exactly where I started at the very start of this video. Oof, I think I said start many times in that sentence just now. Awesome. But yeah, in the meantime, that is it for today's live. I had so much fun. Thank you so much for doing this entire project with me. I really can't wait to see you in the next part. There's a lot coming in this project series. And if you have any questions, please ask us in the community. We're all here to learn AWS together, and we're all here to start from zero, start from scratch, but do this entire, kind of learning journey in AWS in a very hands-on way. So I'll see you in the next project, and I hope you have lots of fun. Thank you. Bye.